Excited about the games?
Oh, excited naman, syempre. Ang haba ng biyahe mulang Spain, but I'm so excited to be here. Super happy with the game, how I played. I think she was a tough opponent, and yeah, tough conditions out there, very hot, but I'm just very happy with the win.
Alex Eala destroys arrogant TV host with just 12 words after heartbreaking defeat. Who do you think you are? You are just a clown in the world of tennis. Apart from chasing a ball, you contribute nothing to society. What are you even doing in this sport? Imagine hearing those venomous, disrespectful words spat directly in your face, not in some anonymous comment section, not in a trollish tweet from a faceless account, but live, in front of cameras, microphones, and an entire press room full of journalists, and all of it happening just moments after you have endured one of the most grueling and heartbreaking defeats of your entire professional career. That is exactly what happened to tennis sensation Alex Eala. And what happened next? She turned those 12 words into a weapon so sharp, so precise, so devastatingly brilliant that it left her attacker pale, speechless, and fleeing the stage like a man running from his own embarrassment. Welcome back to Court Vision Plus, your ultimate home for the spiciest drama, the hardest-hitting truths, and the most electrifying updates from the tennis world. Today, we are diving deep into a scandal that has broken the internet in half, enraged the global sporting community, and left one notorious television personality looking like an absolute fool on the world stage. If you are new here, do yourself a favor and smash that subscribe button right now, because we deliver this level of fire every single week. Grab your snacks, get comfortable, and brace yourselves, because the tea we are spilling today is scalding, piping hot, and absolutely impossible to put down. The words you just heard were spewed by none other than El Gran Wyoming, a Spanish television presenter who has built his entire career on being the loudest, most provocative voice in whatever room he enters. He is known for political satire, sharp commentary, and a razor tongue that he has spent decades honing into a weapon. But this time, he completely, catastrophically, and spectacularly miscalculated his target. He messed with the wrong athlete. Following Eala's devastating quarterfinal exit at the 2026 Abu Dhabi Open against the formidable Ekaterina Alexandrova, El Gran Wyoming decided that the post-match press conference was the perfect theater for his particular brand of cruelty. He decided it was the ideal moment to kick a player while she was down, to pile humiliation on top of heartbreak, and to use the vulnerability of a young woman who had just left everything on the court as fuel for his own pathetic ratings game. But he completely and utterly underestimated the ice running through the veins of the Filipina superstar. Instead of crumbling, instead of crying, instead of giving him even one single second of the meltdown he so desperately craved, Alex Eala leaned into the microphone and delivered a 12-word response so cold, so surgical, and so absolutely devastating that it annihilated him on live television and forced him to flee the stage in utter, unrepeatable humiliation. To truly understand the seismic magnitude of this confrontation, we need to rewind the clock and set the scene properly, because context is everything. The 2026 Abu Dhabi Open was not just another tournament on the WTA calendar. For Alex Eala, it was a statement of intent. She arrived in the United Arab Emirates carrying the weight of an entire nation on her shoulders. The Philippines had been watching her career arc with a devotion that borders on religious. Every match, every win, every agonizing defeat is felt collectively across islands, across communities, across generations of Filipino fans who see in her not just a tennis player but a symbol of what is possible when raw talent meets relentless dedication. She was not just playing for ranking points or prize money or a trophy to put on a shelf. She was playing to cement her legacy as the undisputed queen of Southeast Asian tennis, to plant her flag firmly on the global WTA stage and announce to the world that she had fully, unambiguously arrived. The build-up to the tournament had been electric. Eala had been on a magnificent tear in recent weeks, dismantling opponents with a newfound aggression and tactical brilliance that bore the unmistakable hallmarks of deep, rigorous, obsessive preparation. Her ground strokes were cracking with unprecedented power. Her movement around the baseline had evolved from impressive to genuinely world-class. Her ability to construct points with patience and then explode at exactly the right moment was drawing comparisons to some of the greatest players of the modern era. By the time she reached the quarterfinals in Abu Dhabi, the buzz surrounding her campaign was absolutely astronomical. The tennis world was collectively holding its breath, leaning forward in its seat, whispering the same question to itself. Is this the tournament where Alex Eala finally breaks through and claims one of the truly massive WTA titles that her talent has always promised? But standing directly in the path of that destiny was Ekaterina Alexandrova. For those unfamiliar, Alexandrova is not some journeyman opponent padded into a draw to give a star player an easy passage. She is a battle-hardened veteran powerhouse, a player renowned for a lethal, flat-hitting game that generates extraordinary pace with unsettling consistency. Her serve alone can snap the spirit of the most resilient returners on tour. She is the kind of player who shows up at the biggest moments and refuses, absolutely refuses, to make things easy for anyone. The quarterfinal clash between Eala and Alexandrova was nothing short of a cinematic war. It was the kind of match that makes neutral fans lean so far forward they fall off their sofas. For hours, the two women traded breathtaking blows under the blazing Abu Dhabi sun, turning the hard court into a battlefield of wills, nerves, and raw athletic brilliance. Eala's defensive wizardry and her trademark counterpunching were on full, glorious display. She scrambled to balls that most players would simply concede, flipping defense into attack with an instinct that cannot be coached. She made Alexandrova work for every single point, refusing to gift the Russian veteran even a moment of easy comfort. But Alexandrova's relentless, suffocating power ultimately proved too much on that particular day. The margins, as is so often the case at this level, were razor thin. It was a heartbreaking loss, one of those defeats that leaves a lingering sting in the chest because the what-ifs are so numerous and so tantalizing. Eala fought tooth and nail. She left every single ounce of her energy, her sweat, her passion, and her competitive soul on that hard court. When the final ball was struck and Alexandrova claimed the victory, the disappointment on Eala's face was raw and visible. As a true professional, she handled the moment with exemplary grace at the net, acknowledging her opponent warmly and thanking the umpire. She was physically drained, emotionally hollowed out, and entirely, genuinely vulnerable as she prepared to walk into the mandatory post-match media obligations. This is where vultures circle. This is where opportunists lurk. And nobody in that press room could have predicted the sheer, jaw-dropping level of premeditated disrespect that was waiting for her in the form of El Gran, Wyoming. Now, before we get to the collision itself, a reasonable question deserves an answer. What on earth was El Gran, Wyoming doing at a high-stakes WTA press event in Abu Dhabi in the first place? He is a Spanish TV personality whose primary stomping ground is political satire, not sports journalism. Some insiders have speculated he was there filming a crossover segment for his network, attempting to bring his brand of provocative commentary to the world of professional tennis. Others believe his production team had arranged a special access arrangement, hoping that his presence at the event would generate the kind of viral controversy that keeps television shows relevant in the brutal attention economy of modern media. Whatever the specific reason, what is indisputable is this: he arrived with an agenda, he saw his moment, and he seized it with the calculated cruelty of someone who has spent decades weaponizing his platform against people less powerful than himself. As Eala settled into her seat at the press conference table, still processing the emotional toll of the match she had just fought with everything she had, El Gran, Wyoming leaned toward his microphone. He didn't ask about her strategy. He didn't probe the tactical battle against Alexandrova. He didn't offer a single syllable of acknowledgement for the remarkable competitive performance she had just delivered. Instead, with the practiced confidence of a man who has never once faced real consequences for his words, he unleashed an unprovoked, deeply personal, breathtakingly arrogant verbal assault that echoed through the press room like a crack of thunder. Who do you think you are? You are just a clown in the world of tennis. Apart from chasing a ball, you contribute nothing to society. What are you even doing in this sport? The sheer audacity of those words sent immediate, visible shockwaves through every single person in that room. You could hear a pin drop. Seasoned sports journalists who have attended hundreds of press conferences and thought they had seen everything widened their eyes in stunned disbelief. Did this man really just reduce the life's work of a dedicated professional athlete to chasing a ball? Did he actually, in front of cameras and colleagues, tell a young woman who inspires millions of children across Southeast Asia and the broader tennis world that she contributes nothing to society? The disrespect was not just palpable. It was suffocating. It filled the room like a toxic fog. Officials shifted uncomfortably in their chairs. Junior journalists looked at each other with wide, uncertain eyes. It is one thing to critique a player's performance after a loss, even harshly. Sports journalism has always involved difficult, probing questions that athletes sometimes resent. But this was not journalism. This was not critique. This was a public attack on a young woman's fundamental worth as a human being, an attempt to strip her of her dignity in her most vulnerable moment for the sake of entertainment. And the entire press room knew it. For one terrifying, suspended moment, the world held its breath and waited to see how Alex Eala would respond. She is young. She had just suffered a devastating loss. She was facing a veteran media predator who had spent his entire career crafting verbal ambushes. In that situation, many experienced, toughened players would have been forgiven for losing their composure entirely, for erupting in righteous anger, for dissolving into tears, for simply walking out of the room. Any of those reactions would have been understandable, human, and entirely justified. But Eala did none of those things. Instead, something remarkable happened. A terrifying, otherworldly calm washed over her face. The exhaustion of the match seemed to evaporate before everyone's eyes, replaced by something colder and far more formidable, a focused, calculating, almost preternatural stillness. She sat up slightly straighter. She let the silence breathe for exactly one beat longer than was comfortable. Then she slowly, deliberately leaned forward toward the microphone. She found El Gran Wyoming's eyes with her own and she held them, refusing, absolutely refusing, to let him look away or retreat into the crowd. The whole room was so quiet you could hear heartbeats. And then, with a voice as steady as a surgeon mid-procedure and a tone carrying the temperature of deep winter ice, she delivered 12 words that will be replayed and quoted and celebrated for the rest of her career and far beyond it. She looked him dead in the eye and said, "I build a legacy with my sweat. You chase relevance with insults." Boom. The impact was instantaneous and catastrophic for the television presenter. Those 12 words were not just a comeback. They were a complete, comprehensive, perfectly structured dismantling of his entire public persona. In a single breath, Eala drew the starkest possible contrast between the honest, grueling, dedicated labor of an athlete building something real and lasting, and the cheap, parasitic, ego-driven desperation of a shock jock who tears other people down because he has nothing substantive of his own to offer the world. She did not raise her voice. She did not curse. She did not threaten or demean. She simply, calmly, and with devastating precision held up a mirror to El Gran Wyoming and made everyone in that room, and soon, everyone watching around the world, see exactly what he was. The brilliance of her brevity was paralyzing. 12 words. Not 12 paragraphs. 12 words, and she had said everything that needed to be said. The atmosphere in the room shifted with the speed and violence of a weather front. The thick, toxic fog of his attack was swept away in an instant and replaced by something that felt almost electric, an invisible collective roar of approval from every person who witnessed it. The reaction from El Gran Wyoming was the stuff of tragicomedy. The smug, self-satisfied grin that had been plastered across his face just seconds prior vanished as completely as if someone had wiped it off with a cloth. He visibly swallowed hard. His complexion shifted toward pale. For a man who makes his entire living off lightning-fast verbal sparring, off quick comebacks and machine-gun monologues, he was rendered utterly, completely, and exquisitely speechless. He opened his mouth. No words came out. He looked around the room, desperately scanning for a friendly face, for a sympathetic chuckle, for any sign of an ally who might throw him a lifeline. He found nothing. Not a single person in that press room offered him any comfort whatsoever. Only glaring, cold, unambiguous judgment stared back at him from every corner. The silence stretched on, becoming agonizingly, almost unbearably awkward for the presenter. Finally, realizing with a sickening certainty that he had been completely and irrevocably outclassed, outwitted, and publicly humiliated by a young woman who could have been his daughter, he did the only thing left available to him. He stood up abruptly, turned his back on the room, and practically scurried off the stage. He fled into the corridor with his tail tucked, leaving behind nothing except the thick residue of his own shame and the sound of an entire press room collectively breathing out. The moment he left, the press conference moved forward, but the legend was already being born. Within minutes, not hours, not days, but minutes, the clip hit the internet and detonated like a depth charge. Twitter erupted. TikTok was overwhelmed. Instagram went into a frenzy. Requests for sponsorship deals and brand partnership conversations are reportedly flooding her management team's inbox from companies across multiple industries who see in her not just a world-class athlete but a world-class brand ambassador, intelligent, composed, articulate, aspirational, and fiercely authentic. New followers are discovering her tennis for the first time, going back through match archives, watching her junior career highlights, reading her interviews, and falling in love with her story all over again. She has become something bigger than a tennis player in the global conversation. She has become a symbol of a generation that refuses to be silent, that refuses to absorb disrespect without answering it, and that refuses to shrink itself to accommodate someone else's need to feel powerful. The 2026 WTA season is long, and there are many more chapters yet to be written in the Alex Eala story. The Australian Open has come and gone. Roland Garros looms on the horizon. Wimbledon, the most storied tournament in the history of the sport, awaits with its grass and its tradition and its unique ability to transform good players into iconic ones. The U.S. Open, the tournament that closes the calendar year in a blaze of New York energy and atmosphere unlike anything else in sport, will be another opportunity. Eala's ranking has been climbing steadily, and the performance level she demonstrated throughout the Abu Dhabi campaign, even in the painful quarterfinal exit, suggests that she is closing the gap to the very top tier of the WTA with every tournament she plays. The question is no longer whether she belongs in the conversation about the sport's elite. The question is when, not if, she wins her first major title. And here is the thing that El Gran Wyoming and every other would-be bully in the media ecosystem fundamentally misunderstands about athletes like Alex Eala. They believe that defeat is weakness. They believe that a player who has just lost a match is diminished, exposed, vulnerable to attack, easy pickings for someone with a microphone and a thirst for viral notoriety. What they fail to understand is that the kind of person who dedicates their life to becoming one of the best tennis players on the planet, who wakes before dawn to practice, who pushes through physical pain and mental exhaustion day after day, who travels the world alone and rebuilds herself after every loss with the iron determination to come back stronger, that kind of person has resources inside them that a television presenter can barely imagine. Eala's 12-word response was not a lucky improvisation. It was the authentic expression of everything she is, clear-eyed, self-aware, and completely secure in the knowledge of her own worth and her own contribution to the world. She knows exactly what she contributes to society. She contributes inspiration, excellence, representation, and joy to millions. And no amount of cheap provocation from a man desperately chasing relevance will ever change that. This entire saga is a reminder, vivid, unforgettable, and perfectly scripted by reality itself, of the difference between lasting legacy and fleeting noise. Legacies are built in sweat and sacrifice and years of grinding, invisible work done when nobody is watching. Noise is generated in a single ugly moment, designed to shock and titillate and generate clicks before being forgotten. Alex Eala is building a legacy. El Gran Wyoming generated noise. And the world, without any ambiguity whatsoever, has decided which one it respects. She may have lost the match that day in Abu Dhabi. The scoreboard said so. But in every way that actually matters, in character, in dignity, in the memory she leaves behind for everyone who witnessed that press conference, she won by the widest imaginable margin. She showed the world that you do not always need a racket to deliver an ace. Sometimes, all it takes is 12 words, unwavering eye contact, and the unshakable, bedrock confidence of a champion who knows exactly who she is. Now it is your turn, and we genuinely want to hear from you. What did you think of Alex Eala's 12-word masterclass? Was it the most perfectly crafted press conference comeback you have ever witnessed in sport? Do you think the WTA needs to act decisively and permanently ban provocateurs like El Gran Wyoming from being credentialed at future player press events? And looking ahead at the rest of the 2026 season, how far do you believe Eala will go now that she has proven to the entire world that her mental game is every bit as formidable as her tennis? Drop your hottest, most passionate takes in the comments section below. We read every single comment, and the best ones get featured in our follow-up videos. If this deep dive into the most explosive tennis drama of the year gave you everything you needed, smash that like button right now. It genuinely helps this channel grow and reach more fans who deserve to know this story. And if you are not already part of the Court Vision Plus family, what are you waiting for? Hit subscribe and ring the notification bell so you are always first to the court when the biggest stories in tennis break. This is Court Vision Plus, and we will see you in the next one.
En fin, ceses, dimisiones, esto estábamos hablando. Un asesor en la sombra que también dimite. Pues sí, estamos ante la primera gran crisis interna.
The fans there. How much during the game, obviously you're so locked in and focused in the game, how much do you notice outside of the games with the fans cheering you on? Do you really take notice to it, and does it help you through them tough points?
I'm really happy to advance to the next round. Obviously it's not in the way I wanted it to end. Nevertheless,